10, 15 years back, there were no support systems,
Uh,
there were no processes that
well,
makes the struggle. There was.
there was, yeah. Actually, last week, the third week of August is the ADHD Awareness Week. So it's the 20th ADHD Awareness Week.
Already.
Yes, so
Oh.
it's I'm part of the ADHD Society of the Philippines, and
Mhm.
they've been around for so long, but it's just right now, or maybe give or take 3, 4, 5 years ago, that
Mhm.
the movement for ADHD, mental health, and other diagnoses that would fall under a learning disabilities,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. They would put
actually
it
just
under
started
that
the movement.
category. That
Yeah,
category that you're a person with disability because they have no
uh,
other means of defining it. They will just define you, you're ADHD, therefore you have a learning disability.
yeah, and but no, actually, the Philippines, it's not under learning disability; it's under psychosocial. So
My
I do have
son,
my
my
PWD
son's
ID.
my son's ID says he has a learning disability. It's
Really?
not, yeah, it's not
Uh,
psychosocial.
because in in more discussions though, ADHD would really fall under psychosocial because it affects how a kid or a person would socialize with their peers.
I agree 100% because when they think, when they make their essays without using Chat GPT, I can see I can see how deep my son's work is. And
Mhm.
you don't use Chat GPT when you discuss something on a one-on-one basis with an ADHD child.
That
And
an ADHD child's brain is much better. It's more colorful than ChatGPT.
Chat GPT. So you're
Yes.
saying that now support systems are in place,
Yeah.
processes which, oh, okay, that's good, that's good. And so they can more or less show better at this point their strengths, their creativity, rather than be challenged by the lack of the system, the lack of a system.
Well, aside from that, there are also now laws that protect students with with disabilities. PWDs. There are laws that are there to help them
Mm-hmm.
succeed in their
Mm-hmm.
student life. Back
Mm-hmm.
then, I think the law was there already. I'm not sure, right? I've never really deep dived down on this topic, regarding the laws and the regulations in terms of education. But um, now schools can't say, oh, we can't accept you because you have this diagnosis or because you have this, whereas what schools can legally say is that we don't have the the accommodations, for you. So it would still be up to you if you would want to continue here, right? So that's like saying we can't accommodate you in a not flat out no,
Mm-hmm.
right? But before, in earlier days, feel like a dinosaur saying that, um, years ago rather, this wasn't I don't think we have this, because I do remember there were schools and institutions that, oh, this child has ADHD, this child has autism. We don't accept children with this diagnosis. So that was years ago, maybe,
Yes,
15, 20
yes.
years ago. But
Mm-hmm.
now they can't say that anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Like my son was able to survive school in a normal setting, even as he has ADHD. Now, let me ask
Yeah.
you, um, some people may identify themselves as neurodivergent
Mm-hmm.
because they have pathological conditions. And some neurodivergent people do not have such. So, how do neurodivergent people identify themselves as?
Okay. So I'm part of this group. It's an we are self advocates. So the Philippine Neurodivergent Self Advocates. No. So in
So, there's
our
a
group,
movement. Is that a movement or an organization?
it's an organization. So this organization, um, I think the there is no diagnosis needed for you to join the organization. So if you identify as someone with neurodivergent needs, then you are able to join the organization, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if you ask me, uh, I understand that it's very expensive to get yourself diagnosed. It's like 2,500
Yeah,
per session minimum,
yeah, yeah.
and I don't know
It
how
was
much it
already
is right now.
3,000 pesos
Kasi,
in 2008.
oh, see, that's it's very
Apart from the
expensive.
speech therapy, apart from the support, the
Yeah,
exercises. So you pay the developmental pedia or pedia,
yeah,
and then you pay the support person who will give therapy to your child. And in
yeah.
fact, he was, yeah, go ahead.
But at the end of the day, you can't do those. You can't see a speech therapist. You can't see an occupational therapist without the diagnosis, right?
Yes, that's
So
true.
the for children, the person who has the ability or the license to give that diagnosis is a developmental pediatrician, and there's only so few of them in the Philippines.
Mm,
Right. Now,
yeah,
for adults, they have to go to a psychologist, and this diagnosis, it's not given to you after one session, right?
yeah,
It usually takes like 2 or 3 sessions before the doctor
at the
would say,
very
"Okay,
least.
yeah, I think you have this. I think." So it's expensive, and I understand that, which is why there is a movement for self advocates. So the self advocates, which be us, to push for reforms to make more inclusive societies, more inclusive, colleges and universities, more inclusive workspaces that is not limited to those people who have their diagnosis, because the difference between a diagnosis and a non-diagnosis is a PWD ID,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
So
But
how do you advocates create or define what a safe space is for a neurodivergent?
honestly, it's not much different from a safe space from a neurotypical person. What is the when if I ask you what a safe space is, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
That you're able to express yourself without fear. So it's
And
a
exactly,
fearless it's a
right? It's a
fearless situation that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a physical environment. It can be a social environment whereby
mm-hmm.
people are supportive, people are understanding, and
Mm-hmm.
people are aware of
Now,
such a situation.
if I ask you, don't you think a neurotypical person also needs those things?
Yeah,
Yeah,
of
exactly.
course,
So,
of course.
so when you create safe spaces, when but the only reason why neurodivergence or the FINSA would be pushing for this kind of reform, or any other people would push for this reform on the neurodiversity or disability angle, is because if you push it from that angle, then you can get your audience. These people, disability inclusion, disability safe spaces are pushing for this, are pushing for safe spaces rather. But if you think of it, on like, if you take a step back, you'd realize it's not limited to them. If you have safe spaces wherever you are, whether it's a working environment, whether it's a studying environment, it's not just people with disabilities, it's not just neurodivergent people who'd be could take
Needy.
advantage of this situation, right? Or
Mm,
of the spaces. Everyone would use the spaces. So
mhm,
basically, a safe space is just a place wherein you will have no fear of judgment and apprehensions. Because you know what, here's the thing, if you work, if you like, you're applying for a job, and right now, it's not a law, it's not mandated by the law to self declare, right? But I do self declare because, one, I want, people to be aware that I have a situation, and two, well, if they don't accept me because of that situation, then it's not a good place to work at,
mhm,
right?
mm.
So
So
I do self declaration.
so welcome to the Leader's Edge. Good day, everyone. My name is Aylene Gonzalez, and I will be your host for Season 14, Episode 11. Now, our speaker will be talking about creating safe spaces. She's currently a project manager at Cinder. Thank you very much, Carla Francesca Nobleza. Good
My name is,
day.
yeah, good. It's Carla Francesca Nobleza. So there's really a funny thing why it's Frankie. So I work in IT.
Yeah.
I work in IT, so it's a male-dominated profession, right? So I've experienced this, that if I use from Carla, they usually revert from 2 to 3 days. But when I used Frankie, it's a same day reply. And then once we do the meeting and then realize, "So where's Frankie? Where's Frankie? Oh, I'm Frankie." And then, oh, you're a girl. Yeah.
So
So
you've used the name Frankly specifically because of your IT work.
yes, yes, yes. But you know, friends, family would call me Carla.
Tell me more about being a project manager at Cinder.
So Cinder is, we're an IT company, information technology and services based in the Philippines, no. Um what I do as a project manager is that I'm the one who makes sure that the projects that we do gets to see, it's for we get to deliver that end product. So I work closely with developers, I work closely with the team, I work closely with the client as well. I talk to them. I'm the one who tells them all the news, whether good or bad. And I'm
Mhm,
also the one to tell the news to my teammates. Whether,
mhm,
okay guys, it's a hard deadline. We have to
mhm.
do this. Or so it's basically making sure things happen. Making sure we get things done, making sure.
Yes, that the project gets to its fruition, right?
Yes, exactly.
You
And
also decide the number of team members in your group.
no, actually, so resource allocation, it comes from the CTO. So they, I and the CTO will discuss how many people do you think would be for this project, would allocate for this project, and if they are allocated or full time for a project. Kasi sometimes you can say, okay, this resource is a 50% allocation on one project and another 50% on another, 'diba? So
Mm,
the resources comes from them. I'm just the one who plots. Okay, so kasi in development you have design, development, and then deployment, eh.
mhm,
So I'm the one who says, okay, we need to put this person. So kunyari QA, okay, this QA expressed her thoughts na she wants to be in the design. So we put her
mm.
there. So those kind of
Oh,
stuff.
okay, okay. So one from a department, certain department, that not does not necessarily mean she's stuck or he's stuck in that particular department.
Yeah.
So you move
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just go now to our topic, which is creating safe spaces. I
Yeah.
know you're a very brilliant neurodivergent. Now, this is intriguing to me because
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the first time I'm hearing about neurodivergent and
Oh.
neurotypical.
Uh-huh. Well,
Very new to
w-
me.
don't worry, it's actually a
So,
relatively new term for everyone,
so,
you
so
know.
what exactly do you mean if a person is neurodivergent?
Okay, so we have what we call a neurotypical and atypical thinkers, okay? So neurotypical thinkers, they're the people who, well, think the way people should think, or at least how what the rest of the population, what the rest of the world would consider as normal thinking.
Normal.
These are, yeah, these are what we call neurotypical people. And then we have what we call as the atypical. These people are those who tread outside the lines, walk out, walk outside the lines, out of the box thinkers. These people, they don't think like how people would say normally. So these are what we call neurodivergents, right?
Mhm.
So neurodivergent would be kasi diba, from the word itself, neuro and divergent. So when you have people who are thinking in a divergent manner, wala siyang, it's not a cookie cutter base of thinking, no.
So parang diversity in ethnicity, in
Yeah,
race,
pero
in
in
strengths, pero to, this is something to do with how the brain works, right?
yes, yes. Kasi when you say diversity in ethnicity, kasi of course, ethnic ano yon, right?
Mm-mm.
Pero neurodiversity really focuses on the inside, like how the thought processes of a person or people
Exactly.
does,
Exactly.
no? So, you're considered a neurodivergent if you don't think neurotypically,
Mm-mm.
no? If you don't think
They
like
say, but
normal.
I read in one of the articles that when you
Mhm.
say neurodivergent, these are people who have brain differences. And these brain
Yes.
differences affect how they think, as you said, how
Yes.
they think outside of the box. So
Yes.
since we're so used into people thinking, say, at this particular age, you should know already mathematics. At
Yeah.
this particular age, you should be able to at least communicate in three languages or dialects. So there are certain standards, but the neurodivergence do not conform to these typical standards, right?
Case to case eh. Kasi, the developmental milestones are different. Okay? Developmental milestones really refer to like at a certain age, like for example, at 18 months, you should be able to speak words or some sort, right? Those are developmental milestones. And that differs depending on a lot of things. It's not regularly just because the brain is haywired to this kind of situation that the kid doesn't or cannot speak that language, no. Kasi you also have the nature versus nurture. So that's a little bit difficult when it comes to kids. But with neurodiversity kasi, we are really focusing more on how people would solve a certain problem, how people would look at certain rules and regulations. So it's not about the milestones because that's an entirely different thing.
So
Okay,
you're
so for
saying it's a matter of diversity in perspective?
yes, more or less yes. No, kasi so instead of for instance, instead of looking at I don't know if you've read The Little Prince
Yes,
by
I have.
Yeah, yeah, right. So remember there's this photo of like what is this, right? So an old person would say it's a hat. But if
Yes.
you ask a child, it's a snake who just ate an elephant,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that is, I think that's the best way for me to simplify what neurodiversity is. Neurotypical people would say it's a hat, and an atypical person would say otherwise.
Mm-mm. But when you talk about this possible brain differences, um, they don't necessarily have to do with medical disorders or learning
Hmm.
disabilities, or do they?
Okay, it does, but okay. Think of it as a Venn diagram, right? So
Mm.
we have what we call as non-apparent
Six.
disabilities, right? So they belong to one circle. That's your non-apparent disabilities. And then you have also your neurodivergent people in another circle. So there's an intersection, but not all people with non-apparent disabilities are neurodivergent, and not
Yeah.
all neurodivergent people have non-apparent disabilities. Because when we say disability, there's something stopping you from doing something, right?
Mm, mm,
There's
mm,
kaya nga it's called disability eh.
mm,
Because
mm. Merong
something is
kulang.
stopping you from your exactly, or there's certain um adjustments, or with consideration that has to be given to you in order to, well, to function as a person in a regular setup, right? So when you have this big neurodivergence, kasi when you say neurodiversity, it's a big umbrella. And underneath that umbrella, you have a lot of what other people would say disorders, no? So, like bipolar, ADHD, autism,
So yung
um,
mga Asperger's
sorry,
syndrome, even yung babies where they have the same facial features, what do you call them?
like Down syndrome.
Down syndrome, that's right, Down syndrome. There's all those
Okay.
apart.
Down syndrome kasi it's being debated if it's under neurodiversity, kasi there's a physical um manifestation of Down
Mhm,
syndrome. Pero I understand why some people are saying, but DS should be under neurodiversity because well, it you there's your cognitive function are being affected.
mhm,
Because of their scenario.
mhm.
So yeah.
Could be because, we already have, um examples of these babies who have Down syndrome, who in the latter part of their lives are able to identify and are able to give prognosis of situations which the neurotypical person cannot diagnose or cannot
Yeah.
identify, right?
Well, just like any other condition naman, it's always a spectrum. Eh. You have the highs and
Yeah,
the lows,
yeah.
'di ba? So I'm not saying na lahat ng may ganitong condition would be on the highs.
Oo,
They would
oo.
be
Yeah, that's right.
it's a really a case to case basis.
Oo.
Kaya it's really difficult to, parang, if you push for neurodivergent rights, if you push for neurodivergent policies, it's hard because it's really big.
Mm-mm.
And you get both ends of the spectrum inside, because you cannot just say, no, these reforms or this policies is limited to the upper bracket, diba? It's not like that.
Or multifunctional, or able to need some support, right? But
Yes.
I'm intrigued. When was the time you were diagnosed as a neurodivergent? Or were you diagnosed as one?
I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was in third grade yata, or fourth grade. It's been so long.
So about 9, 8 years old.
Around that time, yes.
What were
Pero
your typical behavior as a 9-year old? And what made
oh,
your parents seek medical
oh,
attention for your condition?
so
I'm
here's the
just
thing.
thinking of it because my
Mm-hmm,
son, who's ADHD also,
mm-hmm,
he was different in the sense that he would be able to answer me in a deep level, but would not want to talk to people. If he doesn't like the person he's talking to, he will remain silent as if he's deaf. That's
mm-hmm.
how he would behave. And then he would run around and move as if there's no danger whatsoever. So at that point, I think he was around 4 years old when I
Ooh,
was already seeing
that's young.
differences. Yeah, I was
That's
really
good.
different. He was behaving differently already because he has a twin.
Oh,
And
I
that
see.
twin is behaving differently. And that twin is behaving more or less of the typical 4-year-old boy who would just move around, play with his
Yeah.
Legos. But my son, who's ADHD, is different. When he there was even a time that I didn't want them to eat a cake. And he told
Mm-hmm.
his twin, "Iyak tayo. Let's cry so that mama will give us the cake." You know, that brilliant thinker already on a 4-year-old. So
See?
I am awed exactly by how the brain works. So in your journey, it started at 9 years old. So there.
Okay. Actually, so my mom, um, my brother was actually, I have an older brother and was diagnosed earlier than I was. No, and because he was, in a classroom setup, he was zooming everywhere. He would run inside the classroom and all sort of stuff. But I wasn't like that. No, in fact, one of the markers that people are looking for with ADHD would be people with low, children with low grades,
Mm.
right? But I
Mhm.
wasn't that person.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm proud to say that I have relatively good grades when I was in my younger years. I was a constant fixture with interclass competitions, those
Oh.
stuff. So I wouldn't say I was an achiever when I was a kid, but I would compete, with the good ones. I can go head on head with some of them, not all of them. There will always be people who are better than you are, but
Mhm.
at that, I was already happy to be there. I wouldn't, but um, I think I don't know what the catalyst was for my mom to finally decide that this person has a problem.
But you yourself, did you feel any sort of difference in terms of how you relate socially with your classmates and how they
Yeah,
relate to
I was
you?
always an outcast. I was always an
Ah.
outcast because I was relatively, you know, pe- children would really ostracize people who do not look like them. So
Oh.
I was taller, I was larger than my peers. I liked books more than people.
Mhm.
So I wasn't it was and I had a bit of an antisocial behavior when it comes to my age. But when it comes to people who are older than me, like the titos and the titas, I can
Mm.
I can converse with them without
Mhm.
any issues. Like, okay, you know what? We'll talk about the big stuff. All right, let's go. Let's
Mhm.
talk about them. But I think it started that my parents decided it's time to bring me to a doctor was when I was different when I was in school and versus when I was at home.
How
I was
so?
I was headstrong. I was
In
i-
school or at home?
at home. At
At
home,
home.
I was very headstrong. Um, and so I would often clash. Like think of it as two oxens. I would clash horns with my mom a
Mhm.
lot of times. So they decided, you know what, let's bring her to the doctor. So when
Mhm.
they brought me in, the doctor, the developmental pediatrician told my parents, "Oh, she has ADHD too." My mom
Mhm.
was like, "No, she doesn't because she has good grades."
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not the basis. So apparently,
Yeah, because
aside from
ADHD
ADHD,
is always related to learning disabilities.
yeah, but I wasn't. In fact, I can sleep through the discussion, or I may appear to be not listening to a discussion, but the teacher would ask me a question I could answer. You know,
Immediately.
yeah, no, it takes about 2 3 seconds because my brain has to load, but I can
Yeah, yeah.
answer, and
So
I think
even
that
as a
infuriated some
child,
teachers.
yeah, even as a
Oh
child,
yeah,
you were triumphant already as far as your grades is concerned. So
no,
you're
I
like
was
an
just
old
doing enough to
soul.
enough. I wouldn't say that. I would just say I was doing enough just to get by. I wasn't putting extra effort to pass, because I don't see the
Precisely.
need.
Precisely because you have that inert intelligence in you that
Eh, eh,
the others who are in your age group do not have. 'no,
And I think
parang
it infuriated some, in my latter years when I was in high school, it infuriated some teachers because I would really appear not to be interested with what they're talking about. In
and
fact, to be honest with you, I'm not really interested.
uh-huh,
But if they ask me a question, I would still be able to answer.
which
And
brings
I
me to this question. You're not interested in a subject or in a particular
no,
topic, and
no.
yet you're able to probably even debate on that topic. How is
Yeah,
that?
probably.
I mean, my mind cannot fathom how somebody, because I'm an engineer, and if
Uh-huh.
I'm not interested in a subject, ito naman, it's different because of the teacher. When I'm not
Yeah.
interested in the teacher, I will not study at all.
Yeah.
But
The same for me.
when yeah, but when you my son does not really like math very well, but he's doing brilliantly in mathematics. So wala siyang yung tinatawag na fear of numbers,
Yeah.
uh, I forgot the term, dyscalculia or something.
Dyscalculia. Mm-hmm.
Dyscalculia. He doesn't have that. And yet he's not interested. Or how can you do that? So how do you do that?
Um, again, this is case to case. I'm not speaking for all the ADHD people out there. All right, but I thrive on chaos. I thrive on
Oh.
infuriating people as well. So, um, if you if I'm doing something else and you're talking to me, I'm still able to register, you know, your discussion. I'm still able to register that. And
Mm,
sometimes that's enough for me to able to answer if you ask me a question.
mhm.
So it's not all the time. I remember there was a meme. I'm sorry. I'm such a I'm such a millennial. There's a meme when they said you have to give your 100% at work, 17% on Monday, 23% on Tuesday. That kind of that kind of meme. And I was like, yeah, that's how it goes to some in one way or another for me. That I cannot give you my 100% because if I do that, it's not gonna be a good thing for the both of us. So I'm gonna give you a scenario that happened to
Mhm.
me when I was in university. So I had a
What did you
professor.
take up in college, by the way?
Oh, okay. I did not finish college. I'm gonna, you know, and I'm very upfront about that. I'm an advocate for new collar jobs and non-traditional learning. But when I was in college, so I took about 1 year of statistics in UPLB, University of the Philippines,
Mm,
Los Baños. Took
wow.
up some, and took up some film units in Mint College in
Mm,
McKinley Hill.
how
I know
diverse.
it's such a big jump. I know, you know. So when I was in university, I had a professor who was like, "You have to give me your 100% attention." And in my head, I can't do that. But she was adamant.
Mm,
So at the end of the discussion, she was like, "Do you have any questions?" And me giving her my 100%, I was already zeroing on everything about her. So I raised my hand, because I'm speak now, think later kind of person, and and asked, "Ma'am, how was the ginisang munggo that you had for lunch? Because there's still malunggay on your teeth."
oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So that's me giving my 100% attention. So,
If I were the teacher, I wouldn't know how to react. I'll probably throw you that mongo in my teeth. Take it out.
but again, I said that is me giving my 100% attention, right? It's not something that I should do often.
At the end of the day, it's just an addition to that 100% because you're able to absorb what she taught you, right? Hindi lang yung
No,
monggo.
no, 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 because I was really paying attention to her and not what she was saying.
Oh.
So yeah, that's the thing. You have to be uh okay. So again, way back in university, because this is where a lot of a lot of my idiosyncrasies, like, really, really went out to surface level. So, in the Philippines, every June, there's what we call a State of the Nation's address, right? So it's when the president delivers the annual report. So I was in university, and the teacher told us, "Oh, you watch the sauna, okay? You
Mm.
watch the sauna, and then you write a report after." So that's
You're
what I
asking
did. I
paper.
I watched it. I watched it, and my report was about the dresses of the people who attended. Because I
Mm.
watched, I did not listen. I watched.
Mm.
So I was talking about the dresses. I was talking about the camera angles and stuff like that. Yeah. And when the professor asked me to justify my answer, my reaction paper, I said, "Sir, you said watch."
Watch.
Yeah. Now that's what
Watch
I
and
did. I
not
watched.
listen.
Yeah.
Did your professor know what condition you had at that time?
Oh, I don't think so. You know what? In
Mhm.
UP, it was difficult to come out. This was way back
Yeah,
2013.
yeah.
When there's no such thing as right now, it's lenient. I was actually talking to a friend a couple of weeks ago. I said, you know what, maybe if I studied in UP right now, maybe I would not have left,
Mhm. Yeah.
because they are
Mhm.
more accepting right now.
Yeah.
There are movements for mental health and non-apparent disabilities. But way back, early
10 years
2000s,
back.
there wasn't
Yeah.
there's not such thing as ADHD. You
Yeah.
can't, you know
ADHD, we would just tag or say or describe our children as makulit. When
yeah,
we were children,
yeah,
there was no such thing as ADHD. Ay, makulit lang yan. Disiplinahin mo
yeah,
lang yan. That's all.
yeah,
He needs discipline because my son would dance around the classroom,
yeah.
but still be able to absorb. So when I talked to the teacher, I told her about my son's condition. She
Mm-hmm.
just allowed him to stay at the back and do whatever
Yeah,
thing he has to do for as long as he doesn't bother the other classmates. Which brings me to
exactly.
this situation that 10, 15 years back, there were no support systems,
Uh,
there were no processes that
well, there
makes the
was,
struggle there was.
yeah. Actually, last week, the third week of August, is the ADHD Awareness Week. So it's the 20th ADHD Awareness Week.
Already.
Yes, so
Oh.
it's they I'm part of the ADHD Society of the Philippines, and
Mhm.
they've been around for so long, but it's just right now, or maybe give or take 3, 4, 5 years ago, that
Mhm.
the movement for ADHD, mental health, and other diagnoses that would fall under a learning disabilities,
Yeah,
you know
exactly. They would put
actually
it
just
under
started
that
the movement.
category. That
Yeah,
category that you're a person with disability because they have no
uh,
other means of defining it. They will just define you, you're ADHD, therefore you have a learning disability.
yeah, and but no, actually, the Philippines, it's not under learning disability; it's under psychosocial. So
My
I do have
son,
my
my
PWD
son's
ID.
ID says he has a learning disability. It's
Really?
not, yeah, it's not
Nah,
psychosocial.
because in in more discussions though, ADHD would really fall under psychosocial because it affects how a kid or a person would socialize with their peers.
I agree 100% because when they think, when they make their essays without using Chat GPT, I can see I can see how deep my son's work is. And
Hmm.
you don't use Chat GPT when you discuss something on a one-on-one basis with an ADHD child.
That
And
an ADHD child's brain is much better. It's more colorful than ChatGPT.
Chat GPT. So you're
Yes.
saying that now support systems are in place,
Yeah.
processes which, oh, okay, that's good, that's good. And so they can more or less show better at this point their strengths, their creativity, rather than be challenged by the lack of a system.
Well, aside from that, there are also now laws that protect students with with disabilities. PWDs. There are laws that are there to help them
Mhm,
succeed
mhm,
in their student life.
mhm,
Back then, I think the law was there already. I'm not sure, right? I've never really deep dived down on this topic, regarding the laws and the regulations in terms of education. But um, now schools can't say, oh, we can't accept you because you have this diagnosis or because you have this.
mhm,
Whereas what schools can legally say is that we don't have the the accommodations, for you. So it would still be up to you if you would want to continue here, right? So that's like saying we can't accommodate you in a not flat out no,
mhm,
right? But before, in earlier days, feel like a dinosaur saying that. Years ago rather, this wasn't. I don't think we have this, because I do remember there were schools and institutions that, oh, this child has ADHD, this child has autism. We don't accept children with this diagnosis. So that was years ago, maybe,
yes,
15, 20
yes.
years ago. But
Mhm,
now they can't say that anymore.
yeah, yeah. Like my son was able to survive school in a normal setting, even as he has ADHD. Now, let me ask
Yeah.
you, um, some people may identify themselves as neurodivergent
Mm-hmm.
because they have pathological conditions, and some neurodivergent people do not have such. So, how do neurodivergent people identify themselves as?
Okay. So I'm part of this group. We are a self advocate. So the Philippine Neurodivergent Self Advocates. No. So in
So, there's
our
a
group,
movement. Is that a movement or an organization?
it's an organization. So this organization, um, I think the there is no diagnosis needed for you to join the organization. So if you identify as someone with neurodivergent needs, then you are able to join the organization, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if you ask me, uh, I understand that it's very expensive to get yourself diagnosed. It's like 2,500
Yeah,
per session minimum,
yeah, yeah.
and I don't know
It
how
was
much it is
already
right now.
3,000 pesos
I see.
in 2008.
See, that's it's very
Apart from the
expensive.
speech therapy, apart from the support, the
Yeah,
exercises. So you pay the developmental pedia or pedia,
yeah,
and then you pay the support person who will give therapy to your child. And in
yeah.
fact, he was, yeah, go ahead.
At the end of the day, you can't do those. You can't see a speech therapist. You can't see an occupational therapist without the diagnosis, right?
Yes, that's
So
true.
the for children, the person who has the ability or the license to give that diagnosis is a developmental pediatrician, and there's only so few of them in the Philippines.
Mm,
Right. Now,
yeah,
for adults, they have to go to a psychologist, and this diagnosis, it's not given to you after one session, right?
yeah,
It usually takes like 2 or 3 sessions before the doctor
at
would
the
say,
very
okay,
least.
yeah, I think you have this. I think. So it's expensive, and I understand that. which is why there is a movement for self advocates. So the self advocates, which be us, to push for reforms to make more inclusive societies, more inclusive, colleges and universities, more inclusive workspaces that is not limited to those people who have their diagnosis, because the difference between a diagnosis and a non-diagnosis is a PWD ID,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
So
But
how do you advocates create or define what a safe space is for a neurodivergent?
honestly, it's not much different from a safe space from a neurotypical person. What is the when if I ask you what a safe space is, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
That you're able to express yourself without fear. So it's
And
it's a
exactly,
fearless it's a
right? It's a
fearless situation that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a physical environment. It can be a social environment whereby
mm-hmm,
people are supportive, people are understanding, and
mm-hmm.
people are aware of
Now,
such a situation.
if I ask you, don't you think a neurotypical person also needs those things?
Yeah,
Yeah,
of
exactly.
course,
So,
of course.
so when you create safe spaces, when but the only reason why neurodivergence or the FINSA would be pushing for this kind of reform, or any other people, would push for this reform on the neurodiversity or disability angle, is because if you push it from that angle, then you can get your audience. These people, disability inclusion, disability safe spaces are pushing for this, are pushing for safe spaces rather. But if you think of it on like, if you take a step back, you'd realize it's not limited to them. If you have safe spaces wherever you are, whether it's a working environment, whether it's a studying environment, it's not just people with disabilities, it's not just neurodivergent people who'd be, could take
Needing it.
advantage of this situation, right? Or
Mm,
of the spaces. Everyone would use these spaces. So
mhm.
basically, a safe space is just a place wherein you will have no fear of judgment and apprehensions. Because, you know here's the thing, if you work, if you, like, you're applying for a job, and right now, it's not a law, it's not mandated by the law to self declare, right? But I do self declare because, one, I want, people to be aware that I have a situation, and two, well, if they don't accept me because of that situation, then it's not a good place to work at,
Mhm,
right?
mm.
So I
So
do self declaration.
so what you're saying is, if you don't declare it, if you mask it, there's a
Hmm.
great chance that you will not be able to get the job simply because the inability to pass the typical hiring interview. And want
Yeah.
of yeah, right? And if the employers will be just able to reach out, or do the extra mile and give examinations such that these
Oh wait, no, they're
potential
not
hirees,
legally allowed to do that.
they're not legal, they don't have a special skill set test whereby these
Oh no,
potential
sorry.
hirees.
I think it's different now. It's different now because you have AI already, right?
Mm,
So sometimes AI can help you refine applicants. So that's different now. But before, if you how do I say this? Some people, I'm not saying all, but some people are afraid to tell their potential employers that they do have a condition,
mhm,
because that's already, like, in HR notes, that's already a black label. Okay,
mhm,
this person has bipolar, and
yeah.
people people who don't know how bipolar works. There's type A and type B. People who don't know how bipolar works, they'd immediately think, okay, this person is a ticking time bomb.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
would I want this person in my team?
Yeah,
So there, people with neurodivergent people are sometimes apprehensive, or they think twice before declaring that, oh, I do have this condition, but right now, of course, there are movements about the mm, culture hiring, diversity, inclusion. Companies would say that they do not discriminate regardless of gender, race, or disability. And I mean, it's a nice thing, but at the end of the day, I'm seeing movements from companies that try to be as inclusive as they can be.
yeah, yeah.
And I
Mhm.
understand it's difficult, because when we say disability inclusion, it's such a big term, right? The the amenities, or the inclusion, um what's the right term about this, like, um the projects, or the
Support.
inclusion, the support that a company can give for people with physical disabilities would be different from those who are people um
Mental
uh,
disability.
with mental disabilities, people with people with visually impaired,
Impairedness, yes.
yes, impairedness, and people who are deaf and hard of hearing, right? So
Mhm,
the support that you give to different disabilities are differ
mhm,
depending on their disability.
mhm.
So I understand that it's such a big net to cover everything. So
That's
what
true.
some companies do is that they focus on one aspect. Okay, let's focus on blind for now. So we hire blind, or people with visually impaired,
Mhm,
vision impairedness rather. Or some companies, they focus on the deaf
mhm,
community.
mhm.
So they kind of focus. They have their own niche, and hopefully they grow that niche to be more accommodating to other disabilities as well. But I understand it's such a long, tedious road, because again, different disabilities require different support. And support, it's not free. Accommodations, it's not free,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
So yeah.
So those are the challenges. We earlier talked about how you can um say or have your child be tested
Mm-hmm.
if he's neurodivergent or not. Can you tell
Mm-hmm.
me if these conditions can be preventable? It can is preventable, or is it treatable or curable?
Okay.
I
um
know we think of the neurodivergent as somebody who's just different in
yeah.
the way he thinks, in the way he has a different mindset or
Mm-hmm.
perspective. But is this something, because not everybody is in agreement. Some say it's a medical condition, some say it's not. It's
Mm-hmm.
a psychosocial condition. Now, as far as your journey is concerned, has this been a case where, or were there cases wherein this neurodivergency condition being prevented or treated?
I wouldn't say it can be treated, you know. Um like, for instance, you can't treat me of my ADHD. It's gonna be with me forever,
Even with the
right?
medicines?
Even with the medicines, the medicines are just there to supposedly help you get by, but
Or maybe
not
focus?
safe. Yeah, it does help, but I'm not gonna say anything more. The medicines help for a bit, like during the time that it needed, like, because when you have a medicine, it has only a certain period of time that it works,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And then once it leaves your body, you have withdrawals already. The withdrawal medicine withdrawal for me was really bad. So
Oh,
while it did help me to finish some of my requirements for
can you
school,
expand on that? How did it become difficult for you, and why did you have to
so
withdraw from the meds?
no. The withdrawal is I was behind some projects because I didn't want.
Mm-hmm.
I told you I wouldn't do projects. I don't like to do it. So I didn't do my school projects, and apparently I needed to give this projects at the end of the school year so that they'd sign off my clearance form. So because I said I can't do that and I don't want to do that, my doctor decided, you know what, maybe you can take some meds for it,
Mm,
just to get you through with it,
yeah.
because it's a necessary thing for you to do. So I took medication. So I would take the medicine at 6 a.m. if I'm not mistaken, so that it would start it would be activated
Kicking
at
in.
around, yeah, at around 8 o'clock, 7:30 to 8. So and then it gets like the high would be on the 12. So the peak of the medicine
It will be
release would be
after
at
six
like,
hours.
yeah, and then the withdrawals would come at around it's like 4 or 5 o'clock. So
Mm,
like when the medicine has stopped metabolizing in your
mm.
body, that's the withdrawal, you know. So that period is like the worst period for me. I would vomit. I would get bad headaches.
Oh,
So it did manage to get me through the day. I would be able to do some of my requirements so that it wouldn't be like a pile of paper and at the end of the school year. But I needed to like I was weak after. So it's case to case. I'm not saying everyone experienced this, but for me, oh, well, if the question is, did the medicine do its job? The answer is yes. Would I take it? The answer is no.
no. Okay. So it's like caffeine. You have a caffeine high, and then it will give you a
I
slump.
don't I don't I don't drink coffee. I haven't.
Oh, okay, okay.
I
Because
don't.
I cannot, I have to imagine it
But
in
yeah,
my
think of it as a caffeine high. Yeah. So like when you take your coffee and you feel energized, right? And then
well,
once the caffeine has left your body, you're suddenly cranky. You're suddenly you know um mood swings and stuff like
yes,
that.
will
So
kick in
it's
already.
pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. So how long were you in that stage of taking medicines?
I took medicines for about I think 2 months because I just really needed to finish my requirements.
So you only took medicines during the time that you're already working, not as
No, 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 I
a
was studying. I was studying then.
oh, sorry about that. So it was during your school age, elementary age,
Yes,
that you were
yes.
you were um made to take this medicine.
No,
So
I,
you don't
I
take it
was in high
anymore.
school. I was
High
in high
school.
school. Yeah, and I took them for about a couple of months, give or take. I'm sorry, it's been so long. I don't even remember
Yeah.
what I did yesterday. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, aside from that, the only meds I would take was for my anxiety, and then I got depressed for a while as well. So I took meds for that as well. That's
Mm,
another story for another
mm-mm,
time.
mm-mm. But I think they're intertwined. When you have this ADHD, there's also a great
No.
possibility.
Yeah, it
Oh,
is, but it's
yes,
not.
it's not. So there are cases wherein depression and anxiety could be a result of being an ADHD, and
There are times,
there are,
yes.
but then again, some ADHDs do not have this.
Exactly. And some people who who are have anxiety and depression are not they wouldn't fall under neurodivergent as well,
Ah,
you know.
okay, okay.
So think of it as anxiety and depression. There are clinical cases. They they are symptoms as well, but in the greater scheme of things, anxiety and depression can be cured. Um, But I'm not saying I'm not a health professional
Mm,
to differentiate the stuff. But
mhm,
what I'm saying is there was a time wherein, look at it this way. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was in third or fourth grade. I still have it. I had anxiety and depression maybe 5 6 years ago, and I got out of my depression diagnosis. They dropped the depression about 3 years ago. So yeah.
how are you now? How are you?
Well, I still do have social anxiety, but we're thriving. We're here right now.
Mhm,
So yeah. I do get some downs. I do still, the proverbial rabbit hole is always waving at the corner. But
mhm.
I would the doctors think I'm not sad enough to warrant a depression diagnosis.
Oh, okay. So you're seeing a doctor even now?
I do have a doctor. Yeah.
Mm. That's good.
It's a must. It's a
It's a
must
must
for me.
already. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It,
it's
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 easier
dangerous because
to
it's um people with anxieties and depressions do not necessarily have the same type of anxiety and depression as the
exactly.
next guy, right? So it
Yeah.
you need the support of the psychoanalyst. Is that correct?
Well, I do have a therapist. So yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes the way I think about it is that it's easier to have them right now instead of having them when you have a diagnosis already, because by the time you already have, like, okay, you got back to that depressive state, you'd come back to negating everything. So these are preventive measures that I put in place for myself
Mhm.
so that I'd be functional, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sometimes this is one thing I like about, if your work or if your office have like this kind of safe spaces, is that
Yeah.
you're not afraid to tell people that I'm I'm having this depressive moods right now. Is it okay if you can take it
Yeah.
slow with me on
So
some
if it's
stuff?
if it's okay to be not okay.
Yeah, yeah, and it helps, if you're the people around you knows, th- they wouldn't walk eggshells around you anyway.
Yeah. It's true.
They just be more understanding that, oh, you know what, you know how some people in an office setup would be like, if they know somebody, like, oh, nakipag-break si ano sa kanya, and everyone's being this supportive people, like, oh yeah, bro, that's okay, you're gonna get through it,
Yeah.
I mean, think of it. Why is it okay to be sad because you're brokenhearted in an office setup, but it's not okay to be depressed, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, if you come out and say I'm feeling depressed right now, and people would just say, yeah, that's all in your head, right?
Yeah.
So, but I'm working in a community that is so safe that I almost had a I had I almost had a uh spiral, yeah. I almost spiraled down,
Mhm.
and my boss, he messaged me about, because there was an account that I was coordinating with for the past few weeks or months, and then he messaged me like, okay, you know what, you got through the first stage of bidding, so take this small win. So, so it's such a supportive community
Mm,
that
mm.
it's okay for you to be sad.
Yeah.
We won't judge you for it.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
when you're okay, you just go back to your regular thing,
Things.
you
Yes,
know?
that's true. So it's
S-
really important for that safe space for the people to acknowledge that
mhm.
neurodivergency really exists
Yes.
and that people with this condition are valuable
Mhm.
and it's valuable to their projects, to the company, even if they have potential challenges such as the swings, the throbs. It's just like having to go through some challenges or struggles in life,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
But
So you're very
if
lucky
you
to be
think
with
of it
Cinder.
this yeah, yeah, I am. I'm very happy to be working with them. It's such a safe space, you know. We're such a diverse group of people that it's so fun because again, you know, like when I had that spiral down, how many people would say that their direct supervisor would send you a message and say, if you want to talk about something, even if it's not work related, you can message me. Or my direct supervisor would message me that, therapy works,
Yeah.
you know, because I've been there, I've done that as well. So, it's such an accepting culture
Mm-hmm.
that it's okay to be sad. Okay, well, you know what? Take it slow for this days that you're feeling sad, because they know you when you're not sad. They know
Yeah.
you when you're not depressed. They know you when you don't have an episode.
Yeah.
And they know that you can do it. They know that you can
Yes.
do your job. So it's okay if you take things slow now, but
Mm-hmm.
they know that when you pick up your slack, they know that when you when you
Rise up
decide that,
again.
yeah, you rise up again and you decide that, because to some people it's easy as flicking off the light. Okay, okay, I've had enough sadness now. I'm
Yeah.
good. Let's go. Let's
Mm-mm.
do this.
Yeah.
If they just really wanted to like think of it as a bucket, and they just really
Mm-hmm.
want to dump all that bucket, and now like that bucket is empty. I can now go on, move on. Yeah, let's do it. Some people
Mm-hmm.
are like that. Some people, it's like
Take it slow.
you take it slow. Like, okay, I'll take 30% right now, with 40
Mm-hmm.
down, 50
Mm-hmm.
next week.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll get there. And
Mm-hmm.
some people they just try to fake it until they make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
So.
It's a uh speaking about faking it. Isn't it dangerous to mask that? You can only fake it for such a short time. And then masking it from people who you think are unsupportive or judgmental.
Mhm.
What dangers does masking your condition entail in terms of you be able to succeed as
Okay.
as an entrepreneur, as an employee, as a teacher, whatever career you're in?
Mhm. So the thing about masking things, because I know it's such a go-to defense mechanism for a lot of people. To mask it, to pretend that that doesn't work. That's not how it is. Or I'm good. But the thing about masking is, to some people it works. There is no blueprint onto how people deal with such scenarios and situations, right? Especially when it comes to mental health, because we are all hardwired differently,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So again, the issue of nature versus nurture also comes into play. It really depends on what psyche you were raised in, like what's
Mm.
the emotional and psychological setup you were raised in,
Yeah, yeah,
right? So to
that's
some
true.
people, they thrive in that. To them it's okay. Okay, you know what? um I'm not happy, but if I put on my happy face, I'll be happy in the next maybe 4 days, 5 days from now, I'll be good. To some people, that is just a temporary fix. Like they put on mask, and they remove this mask at the end of the day.
Mm.
To some people, it's an identity. Like for instance, again, I've mentioned this at the start that in my work it's Frankie, but to my friends and family it's Carla,
Carla.
and I do have a gamer tag. So I put on this multiple mask, I put on this multiple facades, because for me it's as easy as a filing system. So if somebody calls me
Mm.
Carla, I'd
Mhm.
know
You go to that
which part
particular
of my
persona.
yeah, like, okay, this person, okay, I met this person in college because it's Carla, and I have a childhood nickname that's being used by my elementary friends and my family. And if they use that nickname, I already know to pull that drawer and say, okay, it's okay. Oh yeah, this person. Yeah, I've met him here and here. Yeah. So if I go online and somebody message and it's my gamer tag that they use. I know it's from the gaming community. So I don't need to open up the whole document file, like I just need to go to that certain folder and just open, okay, these are the people who knows me by this name.
Yeah,
I don't
I
yeah.
love that system. You created a safe space for yourself already by, creating a certain
Personas.
system. Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. Now,
Yeah.
um, since you're one of the very successful ones, neurodivergent, let me just know. I want to read this because I came across this article
Okay.
wherein there are actually very very successful neurodivergents in history.
Mhm.
One is Anthony Hopkins, the multi-awarded
Yeah.
actor, is actually a neurodivergent. I mean, I can't believe that, but he is. Then you have the animal scientist and author Temple Grandin,
Yeah.
even Marie Curie.
Horses.
Yeah, even Marie Curie is
Mhm.
neurodivergent. The singer and musician Florence Welsh, Olympic gold medalist Simone Biles, and I
Simone.
think Simone
Yeah.
Biles. Is that correct? Climate activist Greta Thunberg and even Michael
Yeah.
Phelps is ADHD, right?
Yes.
Ang galing. So I was thinking, this is not really something that should be masked or that should be, kept as a disease, as something that
Mm.
a disability, but something that can be brought out and given a certain space so that they can thrive, they can be successful.
I'm gonna go ahead and say something about that. These people, these success stories, they're just 1%, right? So we still have to be mindful that, because it's bad when you think of it that way. That you know what, my child. This is just a hypothetical scenario, right? Like,
Mm.
oh, my child is ADHD, but that's okay because he's gonna be the next Michael Phelps. That's not how it works, right?
That's the extreme.
That's extreme. Again, it's a spectrum. You have two ends. You have the good ones, and then you have the not so good ones. But a
Mhm.
vast majority of them, of course, just like any other, it's a bell curve. Everyone's like most of them are in the middle. You have the extreme highs, and you have the extreme lows as
I
well,
understand. I
right?
understand. Yeah.
So what the people you've just said, they're in the extreme highs, right? And a lot of people, they don't talk about people in the lows because nobody wants to listen about those
The
in the extreme lows.
failures or the
I
lows.
wouldn't say failures, right? That's just too mean. Let's just say, people in the end of the bell
Sorry
curve.
about the term. Sorry, sorry.
You know. So the way I see it is that you have to look at it as a full picture, right? You don't focus on the success stories because more often than not, there are more people who have, whose stories about ADHD is about trying to succeed, trying to
So
get
it's
up
about the
there, trying,
journey. Yeah.
yet, trying to thrive or just existing in this, in this very chaotic world. And those are journeys as well that you have to remember that, if you're a parent and your child has this diagnosis, you know you have to remember that sometimes trying is already succeeding,
Yes. Yes.
right? so
Yes.
so I that's why I when people would say, oh yeah, well, it's okay, like even in adult ADHD, they'd be like, or in adult autism, they think they're the next Greta Thunberg, they think they're the next Isaac Newton, they think they're the next
I just mentioned that because it's
yeah.
it's it's a it's a positive thing. It's a
It is,
success
it's
story
nice to
that
think.
you cannot just think of neurodivergence as people who cannot make it in society, who are
That's
not
true.
valuable in society.
Mm-hmm.
The neurodivergents are simply part of the society, just
VR.
as just as the neurotypical people are,
Yeah.
right? There are successful neurotypical people and there are not so successful ones. right? But
Exactly.
I just got excited when I came across this article that in
Yeah.
I think in 2017 Harvard Business Review, they've already acknowledged that the neurodiversity has a competitive edge, and that slowly companies are accepting this and are providing some areas wherein they can give possible hirings
Mm-hmm.
for the neurodivergent. And these
Yeah.
corporations do not just include the IT, they also include the banking sector, they also
Yeah.
include the automotive industry. So
Yeah.
it gives me a great hope that my child who's an ADHD will also be a very of great significance as far as the value that he can share to the society is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's how I got excited about reading this
Yeah.
article.
Don't,
Now,
don't worry. I think most parents would be, you know, they'd be excited with that prospect. But at the end of the day, it's about identifying your child's strengths and just really
yes,
pushing on that, right? A lot of issues for children with ADHD is that they don't like math, right? I think it's for everyone. I've yet to come across a child who likes math, but um some people, they thrive, like even if they say I don't like math, I don't like math, you see that they're good at it,
yeah, yeah,
right? So yeah, some kids, they'd be like, I don't like math, but they're good at it. Or I don't like English, I don't like science, but you look at their report cards and they're good at it,
yeah.
right? So I guess the problem is not about they don't like it. They don't like how this person's approach to teaching is, right? So that's where how adapting comes into picture, right? As parents, as facilitators, even as if we talk about workspace, or safe spaces in general, because I'm going to be talking about this on a workspace level, that if someone says I don't like numbers, okay, think of it in accounting. Somebody says I don't like numbers, that's not, no, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna jive because you're in accounting. You really look at numbers all the time, right? But maybe the problem is this person's just so saturated with the numbers and they just needed an outlet, or they just needed a different approach on how to tackle this scenario, that they're generalizing it now, right? So I don't like numbers. It's such a general notion for them to say, but when in fact they just don't like dealing with numbers in this way.
Yes.
So
Mm,
that is where safe spaces come in. Whether it's in school, whether it's in family, whether it's in workspaces, it's about then how can we adapt in such a way that you you be able to pinpoint exactly what part about numbers you don't like,
mhm, mhm,
or we can pinpoint exactly what about mathematics you don't like,
mhm,
and then we can work on that, because you're able to express yourself, the children, the people, your colleagues are able to say I don't like this right now.
mhm,
If they
mhm,
feel safe enough to say
mhm,
that, then they can,
mhm,
you as a group can identify then what can we do
mhm,
so that you wouldn't feel this way about something,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
So I
mhm,
have a kid, I remember when I was still teaching, I have a kid, she doesn't like math at all, right? But I know she likes arts. She likes drawing. She likes this kind of stuff. So I said, you know what? It's okay. Let's use sticks to count. Like draw the sticks because that's what you want to do. You like to draw sticks. Let's do that to count. Let's do that to add numbers. So we were doing addition to two numbers with that
yeah,
carryover.
yeah,
Well, we're still doing it the sticks way. But I'm
yeah,
not asking her to draw 42 sticks and 19 sticks, but I'm just gonna do, okay, draw 9 sticks and draw
mhm,
2 sticks. Now how
mhm,
many? How many
yeah,
are they? Right?
yeah,
And then okay,
yeah,
that's 11. And then you
mhm,
put one there, another one. So you kind of incorporate some things that they like on things they say they don't like.
mhm,
Adapt. You have to adapt to
yeah,
the scenario.
yeah,
So
So
it's
probably
how
that's
you build
one
this kind of
reason
people.
why people or parents like me do not want to enroll their children in the normal schools because they are adaptive only to the um neurotypical, right? There was a time
Hmm.
when I enrolled my son at the Waldorf school, and
Mm,
their treatment is different from the typical school that we enroll
yeah.
our kids in. They would have they use arts, they use their hands, they
Mm-hmm.
use the actual weight of wood and stones and not plastic. So there's a 180-degree shift in terms
Mm-hmm.
of teaching methodology.
Mm-hmm.
Now, since we have been talking about creating safe spaces,
Yeah.
do you believe that in the Philippines, your group, for example, have you been how successful have you been in creating this mindset, this acceptance that
Mm-hmm.
neurodivergent people, some of them they need support, some of them they do not need support. But
Yeah.
in terms of the time that you started this organization, what developments have you achieved so far?
Okay. So the organization is relatively new, but what we do is that, of course, it's more of an internal thing for now, but we're also discussing with other organizations when it comes to policy reforms for we give our insights about defining what neurodivergence is. The adapt
You're also partnering with some non-government organizations and
Yeah,
government
yeah.
organizations.
Yeah, no, we're so far we're partnering with non-government organizations because these people can help lobby to government organizations for reforms, right? So, because again, neurodiversity is such a wide net. Like if you throw it in the ocean and expect for tuna, you're not gonna get just tuna. You're gonna get a shark there. You're gonna get an octopus here. You're
Correct.
gonna get right. So it's you have to put your inputs. Different organizations have to put their inputs on how to design a reform that is inclusive for all, right? So the best we can do right now, or the best what we're doing right now, is to provide safe spaces for our members.
Mm-mm.
So we talked about,
How many
okay,
members
this
do you
is
have right now?
to be honest with you, I'm not really active
Mm,
in the general chats, but I
but a
do
couple
talk
of
with
hundred, perhaps?
uh there's a lot of applicants. We're doing the membership committee is doing the onboarding in the next couple of weeks. So it's such a tight group for now, but we're expecting once we have to run through those applicants for the group, and then that's actually when we start building this community for everyone, because right now it's just so it's really tight knit from several people from different organizations that they just wanted something like a self advocacy group, because some groups there's the parents, there are therapists as well, but this one is like really for self advocates. So that's one thing we're really focusing on right now, is to building that community, strengthening that community. But on a disability inclusion on workplace setting, there's Project Inclusion Network in the Philippines, who is the secretarial of PBDN, the Philippine Business and Disability Network. So what they do is that PBDN helps companies to be more inclusive, and they also help people with disabilities to get jobs in said companies.
Oh. Later, we will be putting all of this in the link so that we
Yeah,
can, communicate with these people. Those who are interested in deepening their knowledge about divergency, we'll write them on the links. Now,
yeah.
to add to this, What can I do as a person to help support neurodivergence as an individual?
As an individual, I think the first, and some people say, oh, but I'm just one person. What can I do? It takes it takes a lot of people to move mountains. But the way I see it is empathy. If you practice empathy, that's that should cover like 50% of what you can do already by providing safe space. Because when you practice
By
empathy,
listening,
yeah, active listening, you put yourself in their shoes and you're able to see the world not necessarily from their eyes, because that's different, but at least you get a little bit of understanding on what they do. And honestly, after that, everything just falls together. Now, like when you put yourself in the shoes of a person, then you're able to see what accommodations you can do to help this person, right? It's not just about looking at them or listening to them, because it goes beyond what we see and what we hear. People with some people, they know how to mask their words, so it's about reading between the lines. And some people, it's about they tell it to you straight up front.
mm, mm,
So it's a case to case.
yeah,
But
yeah,
practicing empathy pretty much covers 50% of what you need. Oh, what you can do as an individual,
yeah,
because
yeah,
everything else just follows.
yeah. Thank you very much, Carla, for this very informative talk of yours.
Yeah.
Even as I am a parent of an ADHD, I've learned much more today than I have in years. So thank you very much. Now, apart from what you just talked about, the
hmm
organization, is there
hmm
a way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn, so you can just look Carla Francesca Nobleza, but it's www.linkedin.com/in/Carla-Nobleza. I think that's
Take
how they
note
do it,
of
right?
that. Any
I,
Facebook
I I'll
account?
I'll give you the link. My
Okay, please
Facebook.
do.
My Facebook is such a dump account. If you like reading about football, that I think that's it. My Facebook exists solely for football and among other stuff. But yeah, it's the same, Carla Nobleza.
And
Um,
I didn't see you as a very athletic person.
no, I'm not athletic. There's a difference. You don't need to be a football player to like football. I like watching it. My life revolves around it. You know how games are like 12 midnight or 3 a.m. in Philippines. I
Mm-hmm.
watch those. My record is I was able to watch 4 games simultaneously. I was able to
Ooh.
follow all four. That's my record.
Okay. Thank you very
So
much, Carla.
yeah.
So there, so we would like to encourage our listeners, our audience, to put in their comments at the comment section below. And so if you want to get in touch with Carla, we'll also put in the link in. So we learned a lot today. And I hope those people who want to learn more about her and support her, you can write your comments down below. And if you want to learn more about the topics that we just shared, if you're interested, please like, subscribe, and share our YouTube channel. The next episode will be season 14, episode 12, and our guest will be Miss Beatrice Teves, and she will be interviewed by our host, Mr. Paul Lazo. So again, this has been your host, Aylene Gonzalez, and our speaker. Thank you very much, Carla Francesca Nobleza. Okay, so please remember that learning is a never ending journey with limitless vistas.